I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been married to Lisa for about 5 years now. We met in college, had a pretty normal, maybe even boring marriage, at least that's what I thought. We had our fights, sure, and I guess I noticed she was a little more distant lately, but I figured work stress or some personal stuff was to blame. She's always been a bit of a bitch about a lot of things. Bossy, sarcastic, quick to dismiss my feelings, but I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Things started to feel off a few months ago. She'd be quick to dismiss my concerns, brush past my questions about her whereabouts, or just get irritated when I asked simple things like what she did at work or who she was texting. I didn't press her too much at first because I hate fights, but I could tell she was hiding something. She'd get defensive, accuse me of being paranoid or insecure. Honestly, I was just trying to keep the peace, but deep down I knew something was wrong. Then, a few days ago, I noticed something strange. My service dog, Max, who's been with me through all my injuries from combat, started acting weird around her. Usually, Max is super loyal and attached to me, but now he'd growl or bark whenever Lisa was near, especially if she was sitting close. I didn't think much of it at first. Dogs are weird. But then I remembered I had my GoPro attached to Max's harness. He wears it for recordings during our therapy sessions, so I can review them later. I'd forgotten I left it on. That's when I saw it. I was reviewing footage from one of my recent therapy visits, something I do regularly, trying to stay connected to my healing process, and I noticed Lisa was there. She was sitting in the waiting room, which was odd, but I didn't think much of it. Then I saw her talking to someone. At first, it seemed innocent, a chat with the receptionist or another patient. But then, the camera caught her slipping her hand into the pocket of a man. That's when I froze. The man was unmistakable. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a confident smile I'd never seen before. The two of them were whispering, and then she leaned in, touching his arm. It was a clear, intimate gesture, definitely more than a friendly chat. My stomach dropped. I kept watching in disbelief as she got up and followed him into an empty consultation room. The footage was grainy, but there was no mistaking the way she looked at him, the way they touched. It was obvious they'd been having an affair. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I trusted, was cheating on me with my physical therapist, Dr. Carter, the guy who's been working on my shoulder and knee after my injuries. I've been going to him for months, ever since I got out of the hospital, trying to get back to normal. I thought we had a good, honest relationship. But apparently Lisa had other plans. She'd been sneaking around, sneaking into his office, and I had all the proof right there in that grainy video. I sat there, stunned, staring at the screen. My mind was racing. How long has this been going on? Were they doing more than just talking? How could she lie so blatantly? I kept replaying the video, trying to process what I'd just seen. I felt a mixture of shock, anger, and hurt. I mean, I knew she wasn't exactly the most loving wife lately, but I never thought she'd cheat on me, especially with someone I trusted to help me recover. It felt like a punch to the gut. That night I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about all the signs I ignored, all the times I'd caught her lying or acting suspiciously. Now I knew why she'd been so dismissive, so cold. She was cheating on me, and it was with someone I'd let into our lives under the pretense of helping me heal. The betrayal hit hard, and I felt a rage building inside me. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew I couldn't just let this go. I had to confront her. I had to get the truth out of her, no matter what. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind kept circling back to that footage, to Lisa's sneaky looks, her touch, the way she was willing to betray everything we'd built. I couldn't just pretend like nothing had happened. I knew I had to face her, but I also didn't want to go in angry or impulsive. I needed a plan. I got up early, made myself some coffee, and stared at the screen where I kept that video file. I wasn't sure how to approach this. Do I ask her directly? Do I pretend I don't know anything? I knew her well enough to guess she'd deny everything or spin some bullshit story. That's her style. She always lies her way out when she's caught. She's good at it, too. Bitchy, quick with her excuses, always ready to twist the truth. So I decided I'd confront her with evidence. I wanted her to look me in the eye and lie her ass off. I needed her to see I wasn't just some naive guy who believed every word. I needed her to know I knew everything. Later that afternoon, she came home early from whatever bullshit she was up to. She looked annoyed, the usual bitchy expression on her face. I was sitting on the couch, my phone in hand, pretending to be relaxed. She flounced into the room, throwing her purse on the table, and started in about some trivial thing. How the laundry needed doing, how her boss was being a pain, how she didn't want to be bothered. I looked at her. "Lisa," I said, my voice as steady as I could manage, "we need to talk." She rolled her eyes and scoffed. "What now? Can't I have a minute without you being all serious?" I didn't flinch. Instead, I pulled out my phone and played the video. Her face immediately turned pale and her eyes widened in shock. She stammered, "Where did you get that? That's not what it looks like." "No," I said, voice cold, "that's exactly what it looks like. I caught you with Dr. Carter in the waiting room. Explain." Her face twisted with that familiar smugness she always had when she thought she could talk her way out of anything. "Look, Mike, really, you're overreacting. It's just a stupid flirt. Nothing serious. You're imagining things." I shook my head. "No, I'm not. I saw the way you touched him, the way you followed him into that room. You think I'm stupid. You've been lying to me for months." I knew something was off, and now I have proof. She crossed her arms, trying to look annoyed, but her voice was dripping with fake innocence. "You don't understand. It's complicated. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. We were just talking, just talking." I cut her off. "Then what was that? You practically climbed into his lap, Lisa. Don't bullshit me." She licked her lips, hesitating. "Fine," she snapped. "Maybe I did cheat a little, but it's not what you think. It was just sex, and it's over now. I was mad at you, upset about the injuries, and I guess I needed some attention. It doesn't mean I love him or that I want to leave you." That hurt more than I expected. The way she brushed it off like it was nothing, like she was just some girl having a one-night stand. It wasn't about just sex. It was about betrayal, about how she'd lied to my face for months, how she'd been sneaking around behind my back, pretending to care when all she really wanted was some quick escapism. My stomach clenched, and I felt the rage bubbling up again. I told her she could pack her shit and leave if she wanted, that I wasn't going to be some fool anymore. She tried to argue, to make excuses, but I just shut her down. I knew I wasn't going to get any honest answers from her. She's the type who can spin a story faster than I can think. So I just told her to get out, and I blocked the door behind her. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be caught, to be exposed, to be vulnerable. I didn't want her to just walk away like she always did when things got tough. That night was a blur. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I felt like a fool for trusting her, for believing she was different. I kept replaying that video, trying to find some part of her that I could still hold on to, but all I saw was a woman who lied to my face, who used me when I was vulnerable. I started to feel numb, like I'd been punched in the chest so many times I couldn't breathe. The worst part, I didn't know what to do next. I'd always believed in loyalty, in honesty, in fighting through things. But now I saw that I'd been blind, betrayed by the person I trusted most, and I had no idea how to fix it, if it was even fixable. All I knew was that I was hurt, angry, and feeling more alone than I ever had before. The days that followed were the hardest I've ever experienced. I stayed in that numb zone, oscillating between anger and sadness. Every time I looked at my phone, I wondered if she'd call or text, trying to twist everything around again, but I didn't want to hear her lies. I decided I needed some space, some time to think, so I moved into the guest room. That way I wouldn't have to see her fake apologies or her pathetic attempts at explaining herself. Honestly, I didn't want to hear any of it. I knew what I saw, and I knew what she did. One thing I couldn't get out of my head was that damn footage. I kept thinking about how she looked, her fake smile, her defensive attitude, the way she lied. It was like she was a different person. I never thought she'd cheat, especially with someone I trusted to help me recover. That made this whole thing even worse. The woman I married, the woman I loved, had turned into someone I barely recognized. That realization hit me hard, and I started questioning everything. Our foundation, the vows we took, whether I was enough for her. I started noticing small things, too. She'd be sneaky with her phone, hiding it whenever I came into the room. She'd make up quick excuses for why she was texting someone or why she'd leave the house suddenly. That bitchy attitude she always had. Now it felt even more pointed, like she was angry at the world and especially at me for catching her. I felt betrayed, but I also felt stupid. How did I miss all the signs? Was I so caught up in my own pain that I didn't see what was right in front of me? One night I finally confronted her again. I was tired of the games, tired of pretending everything was fine. I sat her down in the living room, looked her straight in the eyes, and told her I deserved the truth. That I wasn't going to be some fool anymore. She rolled her eyes and tried to brush me off. Like always, but I wasn't having it. That's when she finally cracked a little. "Look," she snapped, "you don't understand what I was going through. It's not like I wanted to hurt you. I just needed some excitement, some attention. You're always so focused on your damn injuries, on your stupid therapy sessions. I was feeling neglected, so neglected. I cut her off. You cheated on me, Lisa, with my therapist. The guy I trusted to help me get better. That's not just some excitement. That's betrayal. How could you do that?" She looked like she wanted to cry, but her pride wouldn't let her. "It's not that simple. I was angry, frustrated, and I made a mistake. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I swear I regret it." "Regret?" I spat. "You think saying sorry makes it okay? You think that's enough after what I saw, after what you did? You lied to my face for months while I was vulnerable and trying to heal. You used my injuries as an excuse to cheat. That's sick." She looked down, silent for a moment, then managed a bitter laugh. "Honestly, Mike, I don't know what you want from me. I made a mistake. Big deal, people screw up. I'm still the woman you married, aren't I?" That was the last straw. I felt my fists clench, my heart pounding. I realized then that I couldn't stay in this mess, not anymore. I thought about everything I'd fought for, my trauma, my recovery, our marriage, and I saw it all crumbling. I was angry, yes, but I was also exhausted. Exhausted from pretending I didn't see the signs, from pretending I still trusted her. I told her she needed to leave. Not just for now, but permanently. That I couldn't live with this betrayal hanging over my head. She argued, of course, throwing tantrums and crying fake tears, but I didn't care. I wanted her gone. I couldn't look at her without feeling disgusted anymore. I finally understood that some betrayals are just too deep to fix. You can't undo what's been done, no matter how much you wish it were different. That night I sat alone in the dark, trying to process everything. I felt like I was losing my mind, angry, betrayed, hurt, but also strangely relieved. Part of me was glad. I finally knew, because now I could start healing. But another part was shattered. I'd lost trust in the person I thought I knew. From that moment on, I decided I wasn't going to chase after her or beg her to stay. I knew I had to focus on myself, my recovery, my peace. I realized that I'd been so caught up in protecting her feelings, in keeping the peace, that I forgot about myself. I learned that betrayal cuts deeper than any physical wound, and that sometimes you just have to walk away to save what's left of your dignity. The days after she left were a whirlwind. I stayed in that guest room for a while, not really knowing what to do with myself. My head was a mess of anger, sadness, and lingering betrayal. I'd never thought I'd be the guy to get cheated on, especially not in such a brutal way. The fact that Lisa had lied to me for months, sneaking around with my therapist, someone I trusted to help me recover, made me feel like I was the biggest idiot alive. How could I have missed all the signs? How could I have been so blind? I kept replaying everything in my mind, trying to find some kind of clarity. Part of me wanted to reach out, to confront her one last time and get some answers. The other part just wanted to forget she ever existed. I knew I'd need to take some serious time to heal, both physically and emotionally. My injuries from the war were bad enough. Now I had this whole emotional mess to deal with. I felt like I was crumbling inside, trying to hold it all together. But then I remembered what I found out about Dr. Carter. That bastard, the supposed professional who was supposed to help me get better, was actually screwing my wife behind my back. That just made everything worse. I knew I had to do something, not just for myself, but to make sure he didn't get away with it. I'd trusted him, and now I see he's nothing but a two-faced liar. I started thinking about how I could use that footage, that evidence, to make him pay, so I began planning. I did some digging, found his online profile and looked into his background. He was supposed to be reputable, but I knew enough to see he had some red flags. I decided I'd go to his office, confront him, not in some loud, aggressive way, more like a calculated move. I wanted him to realize I wasn't some pushover. I wanted him to know I had the proof and I wasn't afraid to use it. If he thought he could get away with betraying me, he was dead wrong. Meanwhile, Lisa kept trying to contact me, sending angry messages, begging me to talk, to forgive her. I ignored her. She kept lying, saying she was sorry, that it was a mistake, that she still loved me, but I knew better now. She was a manipulator, a liar, and I didn't want her in my life anymore. I felt nothing but disgust when I saw her messages. Whatever shred of love I had left for her evaporated fast. I was done. One day, I finally decided I had enough. I booked an appointment with a lawyer, started the process of divorcing her. I didn't want to drag this out. I wanted to cut the cord, move on, and focus on healing. I knew leaving her wouldn't erase the pain, but I also knew I could stay with someone who'd betrayed me so deeply. I owed it to myself to get closure, to rebuild my life from scratch. Throughout all this, I realized how much I'd taken my own strength for granted. I'd fought in war, come home with scars, and now I was fighting a whole new battle. The betrayal cut deep, but it also made me realize I'm stronger than I thought. I'd survive this somehow. I would rebuild my trust, my confidence. I'd heal physically and eventually emotionally. But first I had to get rid of her and the chaos she brought into my life. Looking back, I think what hurts the most is the betrayal of trust. That someone you love, someone you think cares, can turn around and do something so selfish and cruel. It's a punch you don't see coming, and it leaves you questioning everything. But I've come to understand that sometimes, holding on to what's broken only keeps you from moving forward. You have to let go, even if it hurts like hell. Because in the end, you can't control other people's actions, only your own reactions. And I've decided I'm done letting her control my happiness. After I took the initial steps toward ending everything with Lisa, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. On one hand, it was like a weight had been lifted. Finally, I was taking control of my life again. On the other, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost a part of myself, that trust I thought I'd had. The hardest part was accepting that she was gone, that the woman I believed in had betrayed me so completely. It made me question everything about what I thought our marriage was, about what I thought I knew of her. I threw myself into my recovery more than ever. Physically, I was doing better. My injuries from my service were healing and I was starting to get stronger. Mentally, though, I was still a mess. Every night, I'd lie in bed replaying the footage, replaying her words, trying to find some sense in it all. I kept asking myself why she did it, why she chose to lie and cheat instead of talking to me. But the answers never came. I just knew I'd been a fool for trusting her, for believing she was different. As the divorce process moved forward, I started to feel more detached from her. I couldn't look at her texts or her excuses without feeling sick. I didn't want her to worm her way back into my life, not after everything I'd seen and heard. I realized I had to focus on myself, on healing, on figuring out who I was outside of this mess. I started spending more time with my service dog, Max. We went on long walks, and I let myself feel the emotions I'd been bottling up. There was anger, sure, but also sadness, regret, and a deep sense of betrayal. Meanwhile, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her control my future anymore. I wanted to find a way to move past what happened, to rebuild trust in myself. I started going to therapy, not just for my physical injuries, but also for the emotional toll this whole situation had taken on me. It wasn't easy. Some days I'd break down and cry, mostly when I was alone, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. But I knew I had to get through it, for myself. One thing I realized was how much I'd been caught up in fixing her image in my mind, believing she could somehow change, that maybe I could forgive her if she just apologized enough times. But now I understood that some betrayals don't get fixed. They leave scars that never fully fade. And that's okay. I've learned that moving on doesn't mean forgetting. It just means accepting what happened and choosing to be better. My closest friends have been a huge support. They told me I was brave for facing everything head-on, for not hiding from the pain. I started opening up more, telling them how I felt. They listened, didn't judge me, and reminded me that I deserved better, that I was worth more than someone who would cheat and lie. Slowly, I started to believe that again. I also began to think about what I want moving forward. I don't want to be that guy who's afraid to trust again, but I also know I need to be smarter about who I let into my life. I want someone who respects me, who understands my scars, both physical and emotional, and who's willing to grow with me, not tear me down. I've realized that I don't need to chase after someone's approval anymore. My value isn't defined by her betrayal, but by how I choose to handle it, and I choose to heal and move forward. So yeah, I'm still healing, still working on trusting myself again, but I feel stronger than I did a few weeks ago. I know I'll get through this one step at a time, and even though it hurts like hell, I'm glad I found out the truth, because now I can finally start building the life I want, without her, without the lies, and without the betrayal. It's going to be a long road, but I'm ready for it. I owe that much to myself. Looking back now, I realize that this whole experience changed me in ways I hadn't anticipated. At first, I was just furious, hurt, betrayed, humiliated. But over time, I started to see it as a wake-up call. Betrayal like that doesn't just break you down, it forces you to rebuild. I learned that trust isn't something you give blindly anymore, but it's also something you can regain if you're willing to do the work. I've come to understand that sometimes people reveal their true colors in the worst ways, and all you can do is decide what kind of person you want to be after that. One of the biggest lessons I've taken from this is to value myself more. I used to think that being with her was enough, enough to make me happy, enough to fill the void. But I was wrong. Happiness isn't about holding onto what's broken or settling for someone who doesn't respect you. It's about knowing your worth and not accepting less. That's why I've started focusing on myself, on my recovery, and on rebuilding a life that isn't based on lies. I also learned how important it is to listen to the small signs. I wish I had trusted my gut from the beginning rather than ignoring the subtle hints. The way she was secretive with her phone, the dismissiveness, the way she avoided certain conversations. Ignoring those signs only made everything worse. Now, I know that if something doesn't feel right, it probably is. Most of all, I've realized that forgiveness isn't about forgetting the betrayal or pretending it didn't happen. It's about accepting what's happened and choosing not to let it define who I am. I won't carry this pain forever, but I will carry the lessons. I've become more cautious, yes, but I've also become more aware of what I deserve: respect, honesty, loyalty. Moving forward, I plan to focus on healing, not just physically, but emotionally. I want to rebuild my confidence, get back to enjoying the little things, long walks with Max, working on my hobbies, reconnecting with friends. The anger has softened into a resolve to be better, stronger. I want to prove to myself that I don't need someone else's lies to be happy. I am enough. And maybe most importantly, I want to remind anyone reading this: trust your instincts. Don't dismiss the small signs of trouble. Guard your heart, but don't close yourself off completely because of fear. Sometimes the worst betrayals teach us the most about ourselves. They remind us that no matter how much we hurt, we're resilient. We survive, we learn, and we grow. So yes, I've been broken, but I've also been rebuilt. And I know I'll be okay. Better than okay. Because I refuse to let her betrayal define me. I choose to move forward stronger, wiser, and more aware of what I truly deserve. That's what this has taught me: how to pick myself up, dust myself off, and keep walking. If there's one thing I want anyone out there to take from my story, it's this: don't let the pain destroy you. Let it teach you. Let it make you better.